attention, please.
You're listening to Tales from the Tannoy with Elinor Hamilton.
Wherever we go in our daily lives, we're bombarded with noise. Our phones and smart speakers talk back to us, not always with the answer we actually wanted. And when we're finally allowed out of lockdown, we might even get to hear train announcements again. You can hear my voice saying things like this.
This is Covent Garden.
And my husband Phil, who died a few years ago now, still works with me every day because his voice says this iconic phrase.
Mind the gap.
In Series 1 of Tales from the Tannoy, I shared our story along with the real-life stories behind the voices you hear in your sat-nav.
Please take the first exit at the roundabout onto the A322.
On the buses.
Alight here for Westminster Station.
And even on the telly.
This is ITV News at 10 with Tom Bradby.
And in Series 2, I'm looking forward to chatting to all those real people behind the voices we hear in lifts, on self-service checkouts, or wherever there's a speaker. Everyone has a tale to tell. Some are funny, some are tragic, some are just plain weird. But we're going to start this series with a voice that a lot of people will recognise. And in fact, a lot of us will know the person behind it too, which is a bit off topic for this podcast. But she's got so many of us through lockdown with her hilarious alternative voiceovers of our favourite and not so favourite political leaders that it would have been rude not to chat to her. Talking of rude, if you're easily offended, maybe wait till the next episode. There will be a few C-bombs being thrown around here, not just by me. And from what I know about our guest today, it's going to be pretty harrowing listening at times. But maybe don't listen with the kids or when you're on your way to help your granny get vaccinated, because she might not come back alive. Our guest today is Janey Godley. Let's hear her providing an alternative voice for Nicola Sturgeon.
The new rules are you can't get a takeaway pint for a pub anymore. Shut up. Frank, get the door. I want a wee baked potato and beans.
You know, Janey, I'd not heard this saying till recently, but it really resonated with me when I did, and I think it applies to you more than anyone I've ever met. It's, did you have a happy childhood, or are you funny? Because you had a really shit time, didn't you?
I think you can have a happy childhood and be a comedian. I don't think, you have to have one or the other. I think it's possible to have a very happy middle class upbringing or whatever, even working class. I think everybody in every sphere of life has got their own tale to tell. And I don't think whether that's steeped in poverty or steeped in ponies makes any difference. If you're funny, you're funny. So, yeah, I did have quite a difficult childhood, as I like to call it, which was just sort of born in the East End of Glasgow to a working family. I mean, my dad had a good job, but my mum was really, I think she had a lot of mental problems that weren't recognisable back in the 60s, especially by the time I arrived. I was number 4 child. So I think she was exhausted and ready for a big long sleep by the time I turned up. So she had her own problems, and those resulted in being really, I hate the word feckless, but because she was really funny and engaging, but she had a lot of problems and she ended up in Valium and Mandrax and tablets like they did back then. If women didn't feel well, they just get put on tablets. So yeah. I think that resulted in her not being good with money and being... she wasn't a heavy drinker when I was young. I think she was a secret gambler, but we never knew about that. And then, so we ended up in debt and there was problems. And my dad loved her, so he kept going, oh, it'll be fine. But it never really was fine. And by the time I was born, I mean, my brothers and sisters who are older tell of a different sort of childhood, that one I don't recognise. I don't remember, mum washing the curtains and dipping the nets and scrubbing the floors with bleach. I remember a really dirty house and lice. And mice and no running hot water. And, I had that memory. So maybe it was generational, maybe by the time I was born, she's like, oh, I'm done.
Every child gets a different experience. I think every parent kind of does it differently. I remember I had twins 15 years ago, and I remember for a little while wanting another baby just because I thought, well, I won't fuck it up this time. I'll be a much better mum because I was knackered with the first two. Luckily, thank God, my husband did not agree to this situation, so we didn't have another baby, which I'm eternally grateful for. But I think that you quite often, you learn from your mistakes or you don't. You can't expect to be the same parent all the way through?
No.
Because your life changes, doesn't it?
And I got it wrong. I mean, my daughter is a stand-up comedian and writer and actor, and she's got her own radio show on BBC. And people would say that Ashley had a really good life in comparison to mine, and in certain ways she did. But, I fucked up as well. I think the minute you decide to be a mother is the very moment you decide to break a lot of rules, and you're damn set ready to make a child feel shit about their life. And there's no way you can get round that. I mean, in my aspect, as long as I was beating her with a coat hanger and starving her, I was doing a good job. Which is wrong.
Well, we've all got our yardstick though, haven't we? And I say to myself, if when I was 16, I was having treatment for anorexia. So I wasn't a very well 16-year-old.
Yeah.
I was very, very depressed and miserable. And I just think, well, if my kids aren't under the care of a psychiatrist when they're 16, I've probably done a better job than my parents did. That's my yardstick. And the 15 and a half. So, we're getting there. I know. That's what they keep telling me. So your mum and dad did the best they could. So you're very fond of your mum and dad.
My mum was murdered when I was 21. And my dad was a functioning alcoholic. And I was really lucky. And I was abused as a child by my mum's brother. And I had a lot of fear and abuse. And there was a lot of food poverty as well, because my ma kept everything a secret. Don't tell your dad you've got this. Don't tell your dad what your uncle's doing to you. Don't tell your dad. So she lived a very fucked up life. And, I told her I was being abused, and she told me to hide it. So there's part of me going, she was a good woman. There's a part of me going, nah, that's shit. My dad made me feel very loved and wanted. I was lucky because he was a good dad. He was not a typical 60s dad where he didn't push a pram or speak to the children. My dad would come home from work and he'd see us in the street drawing on the pavement with chalk, and he'd get down on his hands and knees and draw with us. He was that kind of dad. And he was like that kind of dad right up until he died. And he got sober just before my mum, because him and my mum separated when I was about 12. And then by the time I was 21, she'd met another man who was a violent murderer, and he killed her. So my dad and her had been separated by then, but he had tried to make amends because he got sober. But I never knew my dad was an alcoholic, because he wasn't the atypical drunk man who came home and smashed the furniture and threw all the kids in the street. My dad worked and drank like every single Glasgow man that we knew. So I was really lucky to have. And she was engaging and funny, and Mama said the bizarrest things. I remember someone saying to her once, your house is really dirty, Annie, and you swear a lot. And my mammy says, Myra Hindley kept a really good, clean house, and she hated the word fuck. So I like that attitude. She went yeah, I might be dirty and swear, but here's a child killer who doesn't swear. That's the kind of things Mama went to explain her behaviour.
She's got a point there.
I find that funny. She's like,
yeah, I do.
I might be dirty, but at least I'm no lazy. I don't lie in my bed all day. I'm like, no, you're awake, but you're doing fuck all in the house, She was a paradoxical creature, was Annie.
Yeah, sounds like it. But the guy who allegedly killed her never got charged?
No, she met him when he just got out of jail because he'd been trying to kill another woman, because he was a prince among men. And apparently there was a famous case called Manchester Mary, and he was... I don't really know what that is, but that word sticks in my head. And he had been cited in that. And then he tried to kill another woman. And then he met my ma, and he was in court 2 or 3 times for beating her up. And then she kept going back. And then he eventually, she was found in the River Clyde. And the police came and said to me, Peter was the last to see her alive. I was like, well, I don't think we need Sherlock in here to figure that out. And he went, your ma was just a wee drunk Glasgow woman, which just excused her death. So I was like, oh, okay, well, then she deserved to die. We must round up all the other drunk Glasgow women and put them to death immediately for their sins and crimes against humanity. It was just she was written off as a poor drunk woman, so it didn't matter. And then Peter went on to kill somebody else, and then he died. So it was a fucking sorry tale from start to finish,
And what happened to her brother?
My mum's brother, David Percy, who I can name because I got him convicted in court for child abuse, and he only got 3 years. Oh. Yeah, I know, but, people always go on about that, but I got him found guilty, As my daughter says, the biggest mistake he made wasn't just abusing children, it was picking you with the biggest fucking mouth in the world. You know, you're like, he could have picked a more quiet, secretive child if we're going to be snarky. Because I grew up and went, wah, wah, wah. I put it in the newspapers, I put it in a best-selling book, I've spoken about it on stage. I went round every single pub that he drank in and told all the men there, you need to know that when you're drinking with David Percy, he's a paedophile. Be it on your own head. Bye. Next pub, open the door. Hi there, you know Uncle David. Orange Walk, UDA, red-handed Ulster, loves the Queen. Paedophile. So when you're drinking with him, you need to know you're talking to a man that's thinking about your daughter. So I did that in every single pub where we lived. And then I never stopped saying his name. And then he died as well, alone in his bed, like Peter, the guy that killed my ma. So I kind of came to the conclusion that men that fuck me about die alone, sad in their bed. And I knew that would be a thing.
Which kind of probably makes you feel a bit better for what they did to you.
I did, you know, people, when I had went through the abuse and I had spoken about it, and, you know, I had so many hours of therapy and people saying, you know, you have to let go, his pain is not yours, your anger, fuck that. I wish that prick dead every single day of my adult life. And I went, yeah, I don't have any anger. Yeah, I did, but you can't tell normal people that, they get upset. It's an anger that'll eat away. Nah, fuck that, revenge is brilliant. I hoped he died, I hoped he pissed acid, I hoped he couldn't sleep, I hope he never managed to find love or happiness in his life. I wish the darkest days, because I remember a man that held a very small child down with the throat while he raped her. So I hope he pees battery acid till he dies. And I did. I don't always believe that forgiveness is the way forward.
No, apparently not. But actually, it's how you deal with it, isn't it? And your outspokenness convicted him.
Yeah.
It probably stopped a lot of other people doing something similar. It certainly stopped him from doing it to other people.
Hopefully.
Because nobody speaks out.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, the fact that you use it in your humour is something that people will look at and go, whoa, okay, we can talk about this. Because it's only when you start talking about stuff, mental health or sexual abuse, any of the things that have been taboo over the last few years, people are talking about them now. And I don't know whether it's getting any better. Probably not yet.
No,
but
it probably won't make it better. But when I spoke about it on stage, especially at the Edinburgh Festival, when I used to stand at the door and thank everyone going out, and it was a full house, and, you know, every third person was like, thanks for speaking out about it, you're right, he's a prick and I hope he dies. And they had suffered sexual abuse as well. Maybe I was the first person they ever told. And I'm not saying that speaking about it heals it, because it doesn't. But it kicks that big, mystical, dark secret right into the light where it should be. And, you know, a lot of people were like, you shouldn't talk about that. I had comedians say to me, you know, back in 2002, you know, this isn't something audiences want to hear. And they called it confessional comedy, although the confession wasn't mine. And I remember back in 2002, people going, it's not really something that should be said. I'm like, fuck you, you don't write the rules in comedy. You're still doing mother-in-law jokes, you dick. So,
well, it's interesting what you said before, though. You said that the confession wasn't yours, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You know, why should you have felt crap about it?
Yeah.
Why should you have felt ashamed about something that some bloke did to you as a child?
And I had members of his family. It's a shame because it's not his kids' fault, you know, it's not their fault. But I had one or two of them contact me, or people related to him. They kind of said, you know, you swear a lot. And what they were getting at was, I finally boiled it down, reduced it like a dirty, angry sauce. And what they were saying was, I shouldn't be talking about sex if I have been sexually abused. And I got them to actually say it. And I said, you don't get to fucking determine what comes out of my mouth ever. I'm sorry that was your dad, and I had a dad that loved me. And I'm sorry your dad turned out to be a big peed. But you don't get to decide how I speak. When you're standing in the street shouting, fuck the Pope, you hate Catholics, you don't get to decide what kind of hate I'm allowed. But I just think that's a form of uneducation as well. And there is a brand of people, and I'm going to use the word brand of people, who think you're not allowed to talk about sex or your sexual life or talk about having sex if you've been sexually abused. It's as if, because I was somehow sullied as a child, therefore my sexual life isn't as pure or as valid to be funny. because it started off in a dark place. And I'm like, nah, you don't get to decide how I talk about my fanny or how I talk about sex. That's my life. Just, you know, it's not 1931. So ram it bunty, you know.
So did you find it difficult to have relationships as you were growing up? Or because I know you've been married to the same guy for a long time, haven't you?
A year. No, he was my first sort of real boyfriend, and I told him straight away what happened. And he's like, luckily he was autistic, and we didn't know that then. So he didn't have the normal, oh, you are soiled goods. You know, he didn't have that attitude. He's like, well, whatever you had, you never gave it away to him because it's not something you can give to people. This is yours. He didn't get something that belonged to me because you're not a fucking pony ride at Blackpool Beach. And I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense. So luckily he had a very different outlook. Maybe that's the wrong way I'm saying it. I'm just assuming that if I had met somebody who didn't, they'd be like, oh, well, that's a dark secret. Keep it quiet. You don't want to MB. Whereas he's like, what you should do is jail him, or let's try and find a way to throw him out a building. And I'm like, you're that kind of guy. And it was him that encouraged me to get him put in prison. So he went to the police office with me and everything, and we did it together. Then his family were notorious criminals. They're like, can we not just kill him? I'm like, Jesus Christ, what a crap birthday present. Can you not just buy me a bracelet and let me still jail my uncle, for fuck's sake? Just men trying to solve my problems for me with violence. We're men. We shall take charge of this little lady. And I'm like, nah, you can't look after your own wife and woman and family, so I'll be doing this myself. Nah, we don't really do that though, and we don't go. I mean, I don't give a fuck what you normally do, because you know me and you weren't 5 and you weren't lying beneath a big, giant, horrible man. So you can fucking shut your mouth now. And that's the thing that always got those old gangstery men. They could not bear a woman speaking very candidly about abuse, and that's how I always shut them up. They're like, the thing that happened, I mean, you mean that dirty big bastard make me lying a bit? They're like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yeah, all right, okay. So,
how old were you when it happened?
5.
Oh, presumably it happened.
About 5 when it started. And then it went on, it was about 13 or 14.
Jesus. God.
Yeah, but I'm here and alive and strong and wonderfully happy. And he's dead and everybody knows he was a paedophile. So I kind of won that fucking long game of hate. It was a long game did. And I won it, you know.
Sorry, I'm completely struck by 5. Yeah, you know, we've got a 6-year-old. He's tiny. You know, not my stepchild, but oh my God,
she can't look at pictures of me as a child. Ashley breaks into tears. She's like, I can't even look at it, Mum. And I'm like, you know, it is what it is. And I survived.
So how did you find motherhood? Because it's fucking awful anyway, no matter who you are, I think. But, you know, especially if you've not got a supportive family around you and you're pretty much on your own, just you and your husband, as my husband and I were, more because of geographical reasons than because anybody was in prison. But, you know, it's still bloody hard. How did you find bringing up Ashley when you hadn't really been given the tools that most people need?
That was okay, because I decided to do a big experiment. Like, I would not give her Barbie dolls because I didn't want her sexualised. This was the 80s. Her and I speak about this. She says that she was a fucking creepy experiment that her and her dad did. Me and her dad did. So, and we wouldn't get her toys like an iron or a hoover, you know, things like that. We brought her up to be very verbally vocal. And we used to say things like, because we owned a pub, she was brought up in a pub. So I used to say to her, if you're in the pub and any man wants to pick you up, you don't have to allow yourself to be picked up. You can say to them, you can talk to me, but don't pick me up. And I remember actually walking into the pub, and these wee old men like, hello. She's like, you can talk to me, but you're not allowed to pick me up in case you're a child molester. I was like, take Ashley. You didn't have to say it that clear. Mummy doesn't like child molesters. Nobody does, to be honest. She was very succinct.
Well, no. And how old was she then?
About 4 or 5. She was very fucking vocal and verbal. Ashley repeated everything. It's just like, why? She could speak from a very early age as well, which was freaky. And but she was always very openly verbal about, you know, Oh, she'd say things like my father-in-law, who's long gone, he was an old gangster, and he's like, oh, you're going to go to a private school, maybe you'll be a lawyer. She went, I might be a lesbian and a lawyer, because that can happen as well. He's like, oh my God, that's your mum talking. She's like, no, that's the world speaking. She was so outspoken. It was no surprise she went into comedy, because she was funny as fuck as a kid, But yeah, it was hard. Your question was it hard? But yeah, I suppose any mum being a mum, even if you're prepared to be a mum, you still go, I haven't slept for 2 nights and I fucking feel deathly. And if that child screams once more, I'm going to pretend she doesn't exist. Every single mother's had that moment,
Yeah, of course they have.
Luckily, I had my husband, and I had Ashley on the Saturday, went back to work on the Monday. So literally we just pub, child, pub, child, whatever. And then when she was old enough to walk, child and pub and work, and then school. So she was easy going. Ashley was as easy as fuck today. She was funny, she was engaging, she was bright. She was good fun. She was always funny. So it was good having her a bit,
Yeah. So when did you go into into comedy? Because you were running your pub. Was it almost by accident? Because a lot of people end up doing that by accident.
Yeah, well, we were running the pub, and then we got the pub renovated. We lived above it, all the flats above. And then we went to stay in my father-in-law's house because he had just died. It was like all the fucking stars aligning. And then when he had died, the police came to the house to raid it, and they found a lot of guns, which clearly weren't mine. Fuck, if I had a gun, you'd have known I had a gun, trust me. That's what I said to the police. I went, are these your guns? I went, mate, if they were my guns, at least 9 fuckers would be dead already. Trust me, they would have been used. And then we get charged, and I was in prison for 1 night. And then I remember coming out, my husband and I, both different cells, and we came out in the morning. I went, I'm fucking done with this. I'm bored to death with this shitty family. I'm leaving. I don't like to go back to that pub. What do you want to do? He's like, nah, this is crap. Let's do something else. What will we do? And I said, I'll become a comedian. And because he has wonderful autism, he never went, let's gather our skill set. He went, yeah, okay, do that. And so I did.
Do you know, I've heard so many people lately talking about the gift of autism.
Yeah.
Again, it's another thing that people are talking about and going, whoa, this is not actually a bad thing. This is amazing.
Ashley just got diagnosed this year as well.
Right.
So luckily I had 2 people that didn't go, no, you must conform. I had 2 people that went, yeah, that's weird as fuck. Let's do it.
Well, bloody good for you.
Yeah.
This is why I was so interested in you, because obviously I've seen all the Nicola Sturgeon videos and then the Biden videos, and I love that. So when did all of that start happening? Because Nicola Sturgeon's basically your biggest fan, isn't she?
Well, it started happening about 7 years ago, way before coronavirus and Nicola Sturgeon, way before she was First Minister. Ashley and I got up during the day. We sleep, because we're comedians, we sleep to 1 o'clock, and then we'd get up, and she lives with us, and we'd put the TV on. There'd be an old black white film, and her and I would voice over them because we thought this was funny and it entertained us. So she'd be like, look at my velvet hat, Tom. There'd be an old man, the black white days with a top hat. It's velveteen. And I'd be like, oh, would you like to see a wee bunny coming out? We used to do these funny voiceovers all the time. And then I started doing them when Theresa May and Ruth Davidson and Nicola Sturgeon, it was about 3-4 years ago when Theresa May called the first election. Fuck, there was about 9 since then. And it was very boring. So I started to do their voices, and I just put up wee funny videos of her going, her dog shat in my garden. No, it didn't. I don't even have the dog. And Frank, get the door and all that. I did all that then. And then that went global, and I went on a sellout tour way before coronavirus. And then when the pandemic hit, and then Nicola Sturgeon was on every day saying the same thing every day, stay in the house, don't go out, this is bad, you're going to die, blah, blah. And I was just making it louder. I was just like, if you fucking go out there, I'm going to stick my toe up the crack of your ass. Everybody stay in. We're all going to die. I don't understand why nobody's getting the message. We're all going to die. So I made those words come out of my mouth.
Well, yeah, because everybody engaged with them. Nobody wants to watch a politician say the same thing again. But basically what you were saying was what she was saying, but just in a more accessible way.
I was her anger translator. That's what I was. She would go, it would be good if you all stuck to the rules. And I'm like, don't fucking leave the house. I see you in the park with your swing ball and your fucking barbecues, all walking about thinking that you're all going to die. So I did that.
Well, I'm bloody glad you did.
Thank you.
Because it's just made coronavirus for most people that I know. It's lightened the misery of being stuck indoors all the bloody time.
It's hard. And then I do wee animals, and I do my wee sausage dog, Honey. I do ones for kids for Honey, so there's no swearing in them. And it's Honey going, we all need to wash our hands and we need to be careful. And so I made child-friendly ones so that people could get access to wee Honey. Because, you know, I was brought up with Johnny Morris, Animal Magic, when I was a kid. So we're all Johnny Morris's kids, as far as I'm concerned. And people send me so many animal videos like, Janey, you must do this one. And the wee one with the squirrel going, Jeanette, could you fill up the butt feeder? I'm fucking starving here. Jeanette, I don't think you can hear me. It's a wee squirrel trying to get attention. I love talking animals. They just make me laugh.
Yeah. Do you ever forget that you're supposed to be talking to a child and throw the odd F-bomb in there?
No, you don't, because I have a deal with all the young children in my family. They're all now teenagers, but early on, when my nieces and nephews and Ashley were young, and I used to say, I'm going to swear, and there's no such thing as a bad word. There is a bad word. It's called food bank. That's a bad word. Everything else is not bad. I'm a comedian, so it's artistic, and there's no such thing as a bad word. What there is adult words, and you have to qualify to use them. You can't just throw them about. You need to earn the right to use them. So you need to have buried somebody, you need to pay the mortgage, and you need to be 18 or have a job. You can't just start banding our special language about until you earn it. So none of the kids in my family swore. And, you know, other people around them would go, oh, you shouldn't say that in front of her. I went, she has the capability of understanding not to touch the cooker. So she understands not to say that word. Kids aren't fucking stupid. They know.
I remember my mum she was terribly straight-laced, and she didn't talk about sex, and she didn't swear or anything like that. And so when I got to the age of about 11 and heard all these swear words, I just used them all the time. And she was actually brought into school to say, actually, can you do something about Elinor's swearing? Because it's really becoming a problem. And she was horrified. But I think it's because it was such a taboo thing. Yeah. I used to swear. I used to smoke. I started to do, drinking, did everything that I shouldn't have done, simply because I think when your parents tell you can't do something, if you've got a bit of a rebel heart, which I did, you want to try everything, don't you?
That's why we brought Ashley up. We told her when she was like 14, if you want to smoke. If you want to smoke weed. Don't do classes. Don't do any powders or pills. If you want to have sex when you feel sexually active, go ahead, but protect yourself. But remember, it's your vagina, you own it. There's no such thing as a whore. So we told her she could do anything. Ashley speaks about this and she's like, I did nothing because there was fuck all to rebel against. They're like, no, it's fine. Do what you want. Don't study for your exams. Who needs exams? She's like, you pair of creepy freaks. She got like 9 O-levels, 10 hires and a degree and never done class A's or just... Like,
God, how embarrassing.
It was just, I was the girl that took all the other girls to the gum clinic and got them, smear tests and, pregnancy. Yeah. It was me that told them all about, because we told her about sex when she was 5 or 6. We never said, baby in a bush shit. So when anybody asked, who taught you about sex, they're like, Ashley. So Ashley's like, no, you went found in a bush. Your parents, your mum, your dad put his penis in your mum's vagina. And an egg fertilised, and then what are you, a fucking alien? A foundling?
You made me laugh before when you were talking about being respectful, because there's one person that you did call a cunt, which is okay because. So how did that work out for you? Because that's what properly threw you into the limelight, isn't it? When you stood on that.
Yeah. Well, I get barred from America. Now Biden's in, I'll be able to get back in. So that'll be good.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. It was just a protest. I didn't know that it would go viral. I just wanted the world to know that I think he was a cunt. And it was nothing to do with his politics. It was how he treated women, And he was obviously a racist. If you go back to the Central Park 6, I think it was, he tried to get them electrocuted. He tried to get them, killed in prison. And it turned out they were innocent. He's always been a racist, woman-hating, disgusting piece of fucking work. The way he speaks about women, the way he speaks about women's body fluids, the way he judges women as a number 10 downwards. I mean, fuck's sake, bloated manatee judging women. But so I've always thought he was a cunt. So I just thought I'd let the world know what I felt.
I think the world was in agreement by and large.
Not many people disagreed.
No, I know. But it's interesting though, isn't it? How you've turned it around. Everybody that has ever wronged you, whether they've done it to you or whether they've done it to the world, you've stood up and whether it's in a pub or on the side of a golf course with a sign, you've basically stood up and said, right, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to tell you what this person's like. And you did it with your uncle and you did it with Donald Trump and you've probably done it with people in between.
Yeah, absolutely. Call them out. Shine a light on it, for sure. Yeah, no, and then there was a few people like, this is terrible, you shouldn't say that. And then come January the 6th, I was fucking well vindicated. I was like, meh, turns out he was a right cunt, eh?
Who knew?
Yeah. Yeah. What a dick.
Oh, I just think you're amazing. And I'm so glad that you did it because it inspires people to speak up, and especially young girls. I mean,
I get a lot wrong. I've seen a lot of shite in between. Nobody's perfect. As Ashley says, we're looking for progress, not perfection. So, I've seen a lot of shite in between that can easily be called out. Maybe you shouldn't have said that. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't, But, I'm not perfect. But I like to just call it what it is,
Oh, this is brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can I ask how your husband passed away?
Yeah, esophageal cancer.
Oh, jeez, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's awful. And so young as well.
Yeah, well, he wasn't that young. He was 25 years older than me. So he was 62 when he died, but it's still young.
It's
it's still
60.
young to be died. Oh, well, there you go. Still got a couple of years then. But I think the real, not a tragedy as such, he was always really quite stoical about it. And he was like, it's not a tragedy because, I'm a guy that's had a decent career and, everything else. But it was because he had two little boys. They were 10.
Yeah.
And they were 8 when he was diagnosed. And, bringing up two bereaved twins when
I don't give a fuck about me, but the thought of leaving Ashley behind is horrifying. I get exactly, especially when they're so young. That's just fucking, well, I'm sending you all my love and strength on that is the best I can say, because that's a shitty piece of fucking luck to land on. But fuck. Yeah, sometimes I look at my husband and think I could easily put a pillar on your face.
Listen, we're only human.
I tell you,
it's only after they die half the time that you go, they weren't that bad, were they?
Yeah, but this pandemic's made me look at this relationship. I'm like, honest, I said to him the other day, the only reason I'm not divorcing you is I can't fucking stand admin. I hate filling in a tax form, so I can't even bother with a divorce form. You need to fucking stop annoying me. He's like, oh. Okay. I mean, we have utmost respect for each other. I know that he'd never, hurt me or steal money off me or do all the not, but fuck. There is some days when I look at him and I think I could easily take a toffee hammer to your fingers and just do it really gently until they all broke. And then I say it out loud and he says, well, go do it. It's fine. Do it. And I'm like, you've taken the wind out my sails by agreeing to the pain. That's we kind of just laugh about it.
You've been listening to Tales from the Tannoy with Elinor Hamilton and Janey Godley, with music from Beats Bakery. This podcast was produced by Carl Svensson from Tadar Media. If you've enjoyed this episode of Tales from the Tannoy, then please subscribe and leave a review from wherever you get your podcasts.